The views and opinions expressed by the participants on this show are not necessarily those of Stewart Information Services Corporation, Stewart Title, or Stewart Insurance. Before you make any investment, you should seek the advice of your investment advisor or attorney.
Whether you're a real estate broker, realtor, homeowner, buyer, or seller, everything matters when it comes to real estate. This is Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title. Stewart Title's Bill Napick and guests open the door to what really matters in owning, buying, and selling real estate. And now, Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title, brought to you by Stewart Insurance. Here to inform, entertain, and inspire, Bill Napick.
Welcome to the show, Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title. Thank you for joining us. I am your host, Bill Napick, along with John Bramlett right here. John?
Bill!
Here we go. We have another radio adventure ahead. This time, we wanted to make the show extra special. As many people know, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And certainly here in the real estate community, realtors are on top of that, and they created about almost 20 years ago the Nancy Owens Breast Cancer Foundation. So we're honored to be able to do a show to help here today.
Oh, it's fantastic. The Nancy Owens Breast Cancer Foundation is just a marvelous organization based in Houston, celebrating the life of Nancy Owens, but more importantly, providing funds for breast cancer research. And they do a fabulous job. We were, the folks at Stewart Insurance, the team at Stewart Insurance, we were fortunate enough to be part of that event last year, and we're so excited to be able to help celebrate it and promote it today.
In addition, people can help out, nancyowens.org, of course, but what they're going to hear today is we're going to hear how the Nancy Owens Breast Cancer Foundation started. In addition, we're going to hear from 3 top doctors in the practice of prevention, research, and treatment of breast cancer. It's going to be fascinating.
It really is. Just an hour's time period, you're really going to have a good feel for not only how you can support the research to try to alleviate this horrible disease, but also the steps that are going about and the actual clinical trials that are taking place. So you're learning the foundational side, the business side, the support side, but also the medical side.
That's right, and Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title begins right now. Let's welcome to the show Terry Garris. She is a broker associate at Bernstein Realty and the current chair of the Nancy Owens Breast Cancer Foundation. Terry, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much.
Most people in Houston, we know the real estate community does so much at here, breast cancer awareness. The Nancy Owens Breast Cancer Foundation is almost 20 years?
Almost 20 years. This is our 19th year.
So that's incredible. We try to do all we can in Houston, but certainly in the real estate community. Let's tell people the beginning of the Nancy Owens Breast Cancer Foundation, how it was formed, and some of that background information.
Let's start with Nancy a little bit. Nancy was the epitome of grace and beauty and charm. She was so phenomenal. The first time I met her, I was in awe of her, going, how am I sitting across from this wonderful person? She never got angry. She always had a smile on her face, and she handled each situation with just grace. She fought the battle of breast cancer and lost, unfortunately. When I met her, she was on her second battle of breast cancer. That is when I met her, and I met Amy as well. She fought that battle, won, we thought, and then she had her third battle of breast cancer. And a group of us got together, led by Amy. We met here at this house and had prayer vigil after prayer vigil for her, and we taped them and we sent them to Nancy as she is trying to fight this battle. And after she lost her battle, group of friends got together and said, how can we help continue her dream of finding a cure for breast cancer? And that's how the foundation came to fruition. The first year, we had no idea what we were doing. We just thought we would do a luncheon, have a one and done, raise some money, remember Nancy, and that was it. 19 years later, we're still here.
And you mentioned Amy. For those not knowing Amy, she is Amy Bernstein, Bernstein Realty.
Yes.
Is it 20 years since she passed about?
It's 19 years. She
19
passed,
years.
Her funeral was September 11th, 2001. She passed on September 7th.
I don't know that you mentioned, but she was a realtor.
She was a realtor.
In fact, a tremendous realtor,
Tremendous.
legendary. I remember when I first moved to Houston, that was one of the names that just jumped out in the real estate world to me, just as a person arriving in the city.
She was a tremendous realtor, and anybody who got the pleasure to meet her and know her will remember her just for how wonderful she was. Again, never got angry, never had an unkind word for people. She was just a really special person.
And it would be interesting as we use our imaginations and think if she could have known all that's being done, or maybe she does know from those many years ago. And also, that many years ago, just as we are talking to doctors here today, 3 specialists top in their field, back then, just the research that happens in medicine in 1 year now, 19 years ago, it was a different world situation in the medical world as far as treating and preventing and all those things.
Absolutely. The doctors that we partner with for their research are just phenomenal. Each one has a different research project, but each of them is beneficial to finding a cure. It's phenomenal what they can do, how many strides they're making in the fight against breast cancer. I truly believe that in our lifetime we can find a cure, but it takes the research dollars.
It takes the dollars, and sometimes
it takes the dollars.
Throughout this show we're talking about it, that sometimes people, I think, get calloused or immune to, they keep hearing the term research dollars in every kind of field or every kind of aid or situation, that we get calloused and we don't realize how important it is, and we don't realize sometimes the advances that are made. But certainly in this 2020, all kinds of things are happening. So it will remind people, simply go to nancyowens.org, right, Terry?
Absolutely.
They can go there. They could see all the people that are helping, like you, Amy Bernstein, realtors all over here in the Houston area. And if you're a realtor listening, I don't know, Pennsylvania or anywhere else in the world, maybe this is an idea for you to start in your area, but also to help us right here in Houston, at the center of the medical epicenter of all kinds of things, nancyowens.org. What are some of the other things that we should know, Terry?
Our foundation we've had to really regroup this year.
Right.
This year has really thrown us for a loop. And unfortunately, we have so many things that we enjoy doing as events to help raise money that we could not do because of the pandemic. We could not do our Cocktails for the Cure. That is our annual event to kind of kick off the October Breast Cancer Awareness Month and get us ready for our luncheon. And unfortunately, we could not do our luncheon.
And everybody loves the luncheon. Every year we want to know who the guest speaker is, to see the camaraderie of the real estate community here in Houston. I miss it. I hope we have it next year.
I hope we will definitely.
That's the 20-year anniversary, right?
That's the 20-year anniversary, and that is our goal, to have it next year. And as a matter of fact, this week is when we were supposed to have our luncheon.
That's right.
This week, and just we couldn't. And we have a great committee. So many wonderful committee members that work on different projects to help us with our events. We have someone who helps us with PR. We have someone who helps us with our silent auctions and things like that. So not having Cocktails for the Cure or the luncheon really put a damper on us. So we have been trying to find ways to recreate ourselves and to still raise the money so we can fund these research projects. We have revamped our brochure, sent that out to all our donors. We have worked on trying to do different virtual events. We hope to have one in December, which is a style show.
That's not that far away. That'll be good.
It's not that far away, and it really looks like we're going to be able to pull that off. And it's going to be very exciting at Tootsie's, and we're partnering with them. And so fingers crossed we can get that all worked out and we can socially distance and see each other at that event.
10 seconds on changing gears totally. The real estate market, Terry. You're at broker associate at Bernstein Realty here in Houston, Texas, the 4th largest city. What's the market like in a couple words?
Great.
It's crazy
the market
great.
is crazy great.
That's it. Yes. Indeed.
It is crazy great.
Let's tell people the website at Bernstein also, where they can see you.
BernsteinRealty.com.
That's too easy.
It's too easy. Yes, absolutely.
Someone wants to give you a call, Terry?
713-598-3043. 713-598-3043.
And if you are listening out there in Houston, Texas, or anywhere in the world, simply go to nancyowens.org. You'll see Terry there, Amy Bernstein, everybody there that's doing tremendous work. If you'd like to help out, simply press the donate button at nancyowens.org. Thank you, Terry, for being on the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Our guest is Dr. Alessandro Grattoni. He is the chairman of the Department of Nanomedicine at Houston Methodist Hospital. Doctor, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's awesome. First of all, this time of year, we always bring awareness to breast cancer here in Houston, National Breast Cancer Month. But let's tell people, first of all, what you do in your profession as a doctor, what type of work you're doing in this world.
Thank you for your question. So I'm serving as the Department Chair, Department of Nanomedicine. What we do at the Houston Methodist Hospital Research Institute is we are developing nanotechnologies for biomedical applications. So for the treatment of different diseases that ranges from diabetes all the way to cancer. Cancer is one of the area of major focus in our research developments, and we're putting a lot of efforts into this field. Nanotechnologies are commonly used in multiple different areas and fields, from the industry to energy to, medicine. And medicine is one of the area where nanotechnology can find a lot of application and a lot of useful use. And nanomedicine is nothing else than the field that combines all these different disciplines in science, that ranges from chemistry and physics and also biology and medicine, of course, into one single unique discipline that leverages all the knowledge from the other fields to find solutions for patients that are affected for diseases. So this is what we're doing, and we're doing it on a daily basis, and this is our focus. And it's been a pleasure to work on different fields, but of course focusing on breast cancer with also the support of the Nancy Owens Breast Cancer Foundation.
As far as the applications for nanotechnology in the research and in the curing of breast cancer and treating breast cancer, how does that manifest itself for people to understand that?
The idea is of using nanotechnology is simply that you have an opportunity with these novel technologies that they are very intriguing for many people. You have an opportunity for designing materials and particles and drugs in a way that they are much more effective as compared to the conventional treatments, and that provides and that offers less adverse side effects to the treatment itself. So this is one of the key importance, as many individuals may have already heard. The key of nanotechnology is really targeting the tumors or targeting cancer and leaving all the healthy tissue untouched, so that the patient doesn't suffer the adverse side effects that are typical and very severe of chemotherapy or immunotherapeutic strategies. So this is what we're doing. We're taking these matters, we take molecules, we take different drugs, and we combine them, we engineer them to the point that we can use them in the best way possible, improving efficacy and reducing side effects.
And in the world of nanotechnology, I'm guessing in reading some things about you and what your research is doing, it also has a role as far as implantable devices or implantable treatments. Would that be correct?
Correct. This is absolutely correct. So nanotechnology not only involves nanoparticle and small little tiny objects, but also involves devices such as tiny implants that possess, for example, nanopores. Nanopores are nothing else than very small holes that we can use to control the release of therapeutics, for example, from an implant. So these very small size holes are in size, to give an idea to the people who are listening, that are about 20,000 times smaller than the width of our hair. So it's extremely small, but by doing so, by using these very small holes we achieve into membranes, we're able to control the release of molecules that they are in size close to these holes themselves. These allow us to deliver drugs for extended periods of time. For example, while inserted inside of a tumor mass, and deliver drugs inside of the tumor exclusively, so that the drug doesn't affect the rest of the body. So the rest of the body remains healthy and remains untouched by the drug, while at the same time the drug is having the efficacy and providing a therapeutic effect against the tumor itself.
That is absolutely fascinating. I want to make sure I heard you correct. You're talking about 20,000 times smaller than the human hair?
That's correct. That's absolutely correct.
That is incredible.
Right, and implants that we use, the implants are small as well. They're obviously still visible in that case, because these implants are about a third of the size of a grain of rice, so extremely small. And they mount these tiny little membranes with all these tiny little holes, and allows for the release of drug inside of the tumor. Just to give a better understanding of what we're really working on, is these very small implants are inserted inside of a tumor mass, for example, a primary tumor. They are inserted via a minimally invasive needle approach, similar to the way that clinicians perform biopsies. These devices can be inserted inside of a tumor. Once they are inserted inside of the tumor, they release their payload. They release the drug, which in our case is immunotherapeutics. And we use the tumor as an environment where we trigger the immune system of the person to recognize cancer and to fight it and to destroy it. The beauty of our approach is that we only need to treat one tumor mass, despite that maybe a patient may have metastases distributed around the body, because once we treat the primary tumor mass and we teach the immune system, our own immune system, how to recognize cancer, then the immune system, which is made out of cells, is able to go around the body and find the metastases that are distributed around in the other organs and destroy them as well. So we have a local approach where we just deliver the drugs locally where it's needed, but we have an effect that goes beyond the local tumor and it goes to the metastases. So our ultimate goal is really to provide a minimally invasive treatment with minimal side effects, for which patient can actually benefit from the treatment, live a healthy life, while at the same time they are treated with their own, using and leveraging their own immune system.
You may have answered the question that many people have as far as research. When people give certainly to and help further causes like breast cancer and any kind of disease or problems, we wonder as research dollars are put forth what progress is being made. But it sounds like what you're doing, I mean, how long has this nanotechnology for breast cancer specifically been around? It sounds like this is one of the manifestations of dollars that have been put forth to help this cause.
Well, I have to say that there is a huge number of great scientists that have been working hard for many, many years for the fight against breast cancer. And my laboratory is just one of these. So, of course, I want to give credit to all the scientists that are out there and working hard on this field. We have been working on this for about 13 years now. And we have made good progresses, and we are hoping to translate our technology from the bench side, so from the research level, to clinical use and clinical trial in the first place. This is our objective. What I can say is that the funding that they are spent from the National Institute of Health, of the Department of Defense, or even from foundations such as the Nancy Owens Breast Cancer Foundation, have been spent very well, and a lot of progress has been made. Of course, this is a very difficult field, and a lot of research is still needed, but the progresses are substantial, and I think we need to give kudos to the scientific community as a whole and for their supporters for the incredible developments that have been occurring in the past few years.
We're talking with Dr. Alessandro Grattoni. He is the chairman of the Department of Nanomedicine at Houston Methodist, right here in our fourth largest city. Doctor, before we close out this segment, what else would you like people to know about what you're doing?
Well, I would like to say that in fact, with respect of our work, we have benefited from the support of the Nancy Owens Breast Cancer Foundation. They have been so great in supporting our research as well as the research of other laboratories at MD Anderson and at Baylor College of Medicine. I've been having the pleasure to work with them and collaborate with them closely and understand clearly what is the need of patients that are affected by breast cancer. So we are very delighted to work with them and receive their support. What people can do to support their cause is providing them with funding support and donation, of course. They will all go to the good cause of research against breast cancer. One important thing is, of course, for taking technologies from the bench side all the way to clinic, it requires a lot of financial resources. And those resources cannot come alone from a foundation such as the Nancy Owens Breast Cancer Foundation. However, the funding that the foundation provides are what is required for scientists to gather all the preliminary data and the results so that they can apply for larger amount of funding from the National Institute of Health, the National Cancer Institute, the Department of Defense. And I just wanted to conclude saying that we did exactly what I just said. We leveraged the funding received from the Nancy Owens Breast Cancer Foundation, and we were able to succeed in putting together a proposal to achieve funding from the Department of Defense, which were about $2.5 million funding for the next 3 years of research and development. So I think that there is a lot that can be done with the support from the Nancy Owens Breast Cancer Foundation, and I'm very grateful once again for their support.
And of course, their website for donations is nancyowens.org. That's nancyowens.org. And by the way, Doctor, I encourage people to go to houstonmethodist.org and look at your accomplishments and more about your work. I'm just seeing here so many things. It looks like you're holding patents, too, as far as apparatuses of delivery methods and so many things. You're in a fascinating field doing tremendous work, and my hat's off to you, sir.
Thank you so much. And if anybody wants to know more about what we're doing, we also are present on social media pages on Facebook and Instagram as well as on Twitter. And people can follow us at Grattoni Lab. That is our name on the social media.
And that's Grattoni, Dr. Alessandro Grattoni. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you very much.
Our guest is Dr. Isabel Bedrosian. She is with the MD Anderson Cancer Center. Doctor, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Let's tell people, first of all, your role at MD Anderson as far as breast cancer goes. Let's tell people what you do there.
Sure. So I am a surgical oncologist, and the practice of my practice focus is breast cancer. So essentially, I do surgery on patients with operable breast cancer.
And certainly here we are today on this special show of Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title, trying to help the Nancy Owens Breast Cancer Foundation. I want to tell people right up front, the website is nancyowens.org. Let's tell people your relationship to this foundation.
Sure. So I am fortunate to have my research supported by the Nancy Owens Foundation. They have been supporting our efforts at MD Anderson for some years now, and I'm very excited to be able to share some of the research that we've done with the support of those funds.
Let's tell people some of the advances perhaps that have been, let's just say in the last year, even though it's been a crazy year, I'm sure there have been some advances. What are some of the things we should know about there?
Sure. I think a lot of advances have come in the area of treatment of breast cancer. So, we have made progress in terms of immune-based therapies for breast cancer, in some advanced targeted therapies for breast cancer. So we actually have been seeing some promising new drugs that have come so far, are going to make some substantial difference for advanced breast cancer patients. And hopefully, over the coming years, some of these agents will also be proven effective in the earlier stages of disease as well.
And I would think, like anything, we think about early diagnosis. The earlier, the better in terms of treatment.
Oh, for sure. There are several advantages to early diagnosis, early detection and diagnosis. The first is that the earlier you catch the disease, the more likely you are to be able to cure that patient. And the second is that the earlier you catch the disease, the more likely you are to not need as extensive and aggressive treatment for that disease. So very important to have early detection and early diagnosis.
From a prevention standpoint, what should people do? Mostly women. I know breast cancer also affects some men on, I suppose, a limited basis. But as far as women go, what should they do every year in terms of prevention and checking themselves? Or what are the warning signs when they should see a doctor?
Right. So I think there's a number of important factors women should consider. I think maintaining good overall health is very important for many things, many diseases, including breast cancer. So maintaining healthy body weight, exercising are all things that one can do to try to reduce one's risk. I think the other critical part is to know your family history. A substantial number of women are at risk because of their family history. So really understanding what your family history looks like, seeking out the services of high-risk clinics if you do have a family history of breast cancer or even ovarian cancer, because we do see, or any type of cancer. Honestly, I would encourage women to seek advice from a health provider, whether the clustering of cancers in that family indicates potentially a high-risk situation. And if so, they can be tested for what we call germline mutations, things like BRCA1, BRCA2. I'm sure these are genes that many listeners may be familiar with. This is what Angelina Jolie most famously was diagnosed with. And so these genes can explain some of the cancers that run in families. And if we can identify families who are at risk, identify the genes that cause them, then we can actually offer women intensified screening so that we can really improve early detection and diagnosis in those high-risk populations.
Taking three categories: prevention, treatment, and research.
Right.
Which one of those categories are you in most of the time?
Right. So I obviously have an active practice and I treat breast cancer patients. On the research side, my research is focused on the ideas of early detection and on prevention. And the prevention area in particular, our program is focused on developing vaccines for breast cancer prevention. This was work actually started by my colleague Beth Mittendorf, who left to go to Boston, but we do still collaborate. When she started this program, the effort was really on developing vaccines for a type of breast cancer called HER2 positive breast cancer. We've had a number of studies using this HER2 directed vaccine, and we are currently waiting the results of some of those studies. But it occurred to us, though, that even if this HER2 vaccine is successful, it's only going to go so far, because HER2 positive breast cancer accounts for only about 20% of breast cancers. So about 80% of women are not going to get HER2 positive breast cancer. And so there would be no benefit to them at all to give them this HER2 directed vaccine. So we started to think about how can we broaden the vaccine opportunities for breast cancer treatment and breast cancer prevention, because we are hopeful that we can take some of these vaccines and move them into the true prevention arena, not just for the treatment of disease, but the prevention of disease. So we have been actively investigating and trying to develop additional vaccines targeting things other than HER2, because we feel that we are going to need a multitude of vaccines to treat the various different types of breast cancer that women are prone to get.
And so when we think about research, when people go to nancyowens.org and make donations, those kind of donations go to help the kind of research you're talking about, it sounds like.
Yes, that's correct. And actually that's huge, because, when we're first starting to develop a line of investigation, it's really hit or miss. You have certain ideas, you try them out. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Most funding organizations in this country aren't really going to fund hit or miss research. They really want something that has a pretty good chance of succeeding. And so getting pilot funds from Nancy Owen really allows us to do these initial hit or miss, to develop some ideas and lines of investigation that we can say, hey, this is helpful, this is working. It gives us what we call pilot data, preliminary data, and we can then use those data to help make the case for larger funded studies through organizations such as the NCI.
And again, thinking in terms of the prevention aspect, there are vaccines in the works, things, medicines that are out there, I suppose, but also what about just nutrition? Are there certain things that you may stay away from as far as food goes that you've found that might lean more towards cancer, or just general nutrition? What are some do's and don'ts that you might practice in your life?
Yeah, so, I think I get that question a lot from my patients. What do I avoid? What should I eat? There really is not a breast cancer diet. Your basic facts of nutrition that you've heard over and over again about eating a fiber-rich diet, reduce your intake of, red meat, really holds for breast cancer. So there are no specific foods that I would say avoid for purposes of breast cancer. I would just say maintain a healthy diet with as much plant-based as you can get, reducing your intake of red meats. In terms of alcohol, because that's another one, maintain sort of limited alcohol intake. If you don't drink, don't start drinking. But if you do drink, moderation is the key. Obviously, smoking, please do. If you are a smoker, please, engage
stop.
with. Well, engage. I realize it's difficult. I mean, it's very difficult to stop, addictive habits like smoking. So, but there are resources out there. Engage with them. See if you can get off of the smoking as well. So, I think the answer there is maintaining an overall healthy lifestyle is going to help you in a multitude of ways, including potentially reducing your risk of breast cancer.
Well, one more thing along that same line, and what about vitamins? Is it good to take a multiple vitamin? Can it hurt? What about extra vitamin C, vitamin D for the immune system?
Yeah, so, I would say that in general, if you're eating a well-balanced, healthy diet, supplemental vitamins are not needed. I would say that some exceptions to that are women who are older, who may have some bone softening of the bones. They may need some supplemental calcium and vitamin D, for example, but those should always be done under the guidance of a physician. I wouldn't really recommend taking things off the shelf, particularly outside the general vitamin arena. A lot of the supplements that people might see at nutrition stores could have deleterious effects, and it would be important, if you were to take those, to take them with the advice of a physician. And I should also note that none of these supplements really have been shown to affect breast cancer risk. So taking them isn't going to change in any way your risk of getting breast cancer.
What is the first thing that a woman would notice where they would go to a doctor to say, hey, I think something's not right?
Well, hopefully they won't notice anything because, with the use of screening mammography, a lot of women are completely what we call asymptomatic. They have no symptoms, and oftentimes they're surprised that they have breast cancer. But that's actually exactly how we want to find it. We want to find it before you actually have symptoms. So screening mammography, usually done on an annual basis, means that most women who have breast cancer don't have symptoms at all. But some symptoms that should they occur, I would say the following need immediate attention. A lump in the breast should always get attention. I would say that changes in the color of the skin, swelling of the breast, nipple discharge, those are all things that should get immediate attention and should be evaluated appropriately by the physicians.
So with, let's say, the last 2 minutes or so, what are some of the other things that are important for people to hear in what you're doing and how possibly they can prevent, or if they have breast cancer, maybe some good news as far as the treatment and the success rates?
Yeah, I mean, I think increasingly with every passing year, we're seeing more and more drugs come online that are going to be helpful towards treating breast cancer and curing more women. I think to me, the one of the most exciting areas that I see being developed, including by our own research group, is changing this idea of early detection and changing it from identification of disease on the mammogram, and instead moving the timeline and saying, instead of identifying the disease in 2020, could we have known in 2019 that disease was about to happen? And so this idea of predicting who's at risk of breast cancer within the next year or two, before they actually even have the disease, and allowing us to intervene to reduce the risk and reduce that cancer from even happening in the first place. And that is a very, very exciting area in research right now, and it's being driven by artificial intelligence and computing. And so I'm very optimistic that in the coming years, we're going to really shift the bar for early detection to actually identifying women who are about to go on to get breast cancer, intervening so that they actually never even experience a diagnosis.
We're talking with Dr. Isabel Bedrosian, Doctor, of all the fields of medicine that you could be in, how
Yeah.
is it that you chose this one for your life's work?
So I chose to go into surgery because I really loved the idea of, using my hands and using hand-based skills. I love the concepts in surgery. I love the connections with patients in surgery. So I went into general surgery for those reasons. And then I enjoy taking care of cancer patients. So I came down to MD Anderson to do a fellowship in cancer surgery. And while I was there, I found that I really enjoyed working with breast cancer patients. And so here I am, 15 years on, really enjoying taking care of breast cancer patients and hopeful that we will continue to make progress in treating the disease and, to me, most excitingly, in preventing the disease so that we can further reduce, the cost of this illness on women in this country.
And we want to remind people you can go to nancyowens.org to make a donation to find out more information about the Nancy Owens Breast Cancer Foundation. And, Doctor, are there any websites where they can learn more about prevention or at MD Anderson?
Yeah, there's actually MD Anderson has an entire prevention department, so I would encourage them to look at the website at MD Anderson for further advice and information about prevention of cancer in general and breast cancer in particular.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Let's talk to Dr. Matthew Ellis. He is the director of the Lester and Sue Smith Center for Breast Cancer. Doctor, welcome to the show.
I'm very happy to be here.
You are directing some important things here in Houston, Texas at the Baylor College of Medicine. Let's tell people, as far as your role, what that actually means and some of the things that you're doing every day to help.
Well, actually, here in Houston, we have one of the largest investments in breast cancer research in the world. Baylor College of Medicine is the center of Lester and Sue Smith's gift. What that really means is that there's over 160 people working on breast cancer research, covering the complete spectrum from prevention research right through to the treatment of the most advanced forms of the disease. And so my job is to provide resources, provide inspiration for our young investigators. We obviously train a lot of graduate students. Then finally is the clinical side. And really a theme of the center is the patient is the center of the research. Whilst all the models and the mice and all that kind of thing is important to do, nonetheless, you can't cure breast cancer without studying humans with breast cancer. So that's our central focus.
Would it be true to say that when we have any kind of disease, in this case breast cancer, if breast cancer afflicts one person and then another, it's two totally different things?
Absolutely. So in sort of medical terms, we call that disease heterogeneity, right? So if you've gone through the breast cancer journey, you'll know that there's three main categories of the disease. There's a sort that is called hormone receptor positive. This typically happens in slightly older women. The tumor is fed by the hormone estrogen. This can occur actually in pre- and postmenopausal women. And the central therapy is to dampen down the hormone signaling in the cell by reducing the estrogen levels in the body. So that's one type. The second type is called HER2 positive. This is a real success story, the HER2 positive type, because it's driven by a molecule that sits on the cell surface, on the cancer cell surface. So you can attack it with an antibody. And a series of antibodies-based therapies have dramatically improved the survival for that form of breast cancer. And then there's a form of the disease that doesn't have the hormone signaling and doesn't have the HER2 either. It's sometimes called double or triple negative breast cancer. And you can guess from the name, if you call something by what it isn't, you haven't got a great clue about what it is. And so a lot of what we do in the breast center is to research exactly what an individual woman has beyond just that simple three disease definition. Because therein lies the answer why one woman can undergo surgery and maybe take a tamoxifen tablet and do absolutely fine and grow on to be a grandma, and another woman, age 30, gets treatment for this triple negative form of the disease and dies within 18 months. I mean, huge differences. So and that's what got me into breast cancer in the first place, because when I started looking after women with breast cancer, I was totally struck by this issue of disease heterogeneity.
As far as in your role as the director, what have you seen, let's say, in the past year in terms of advances that people should know about and that they can be encouraged about?
Okay, so you realize the human body is complicated, right? And you all realize that you're made up of these things called cells. Your body's made up of these tiny little life components we call cell.
And really small, right?
They're really small, and they're all talking to each other, right?
Oh,
You're
no,
made of
okay.
trillions of them. And they're all talking to each other to create, a thing we call a human. So when a cancer forms, it's a disease of the cell. The cell loses its context. It stops talking to its neighbor. It evades the immune system. It starts growing in ways that it shouldn't. And how does that work? Because really the cell is a tiny little biological computer. Of course, it's a natural computer. We don't call it a computer, but really that's what it is. And so really, if you want to understand what's wrong with someone, you have to make a diagnosis. Just when your computer crashes, you've got to work out why your computer isn't working anymore, what piece of software's gone wrong, or what piece of hardware's gone wrong. It's the same with studying cancer. So in the last year, we've developed at Baylor a technique called proteogenomics, which is an advance in diagnostic techniques, where we don't just look at the DNA, the hardwiring of the computer. We don't just look at the RNA, which is kind of the way the cell interprets those genes that are being switched on and off. We also look at the proteins and the signaling. This is the color of the computer. This is running the movie that you're trying to watch on your computer screen, and then using computer science to stitch all this together and reconstruct exactly what that tumor's doing and what's driving it and what makes it lethal or what makes it benign.
So, and you said earlier the journey of someone with breast cancer, and each case is different, no doubt, in terms of certainly when it's diagnosed, when it's found, and all that. But as far as if there's any kind of average, if it's caught in the right amount of time, how long does it take for someone to be cured? When they're cured?
Or can you call someone cured?
Can you? I don't know. In a good case, we'll say.
All right. So I will go on a slight tangent because I have a story to tell myself. I was diagnosed with prostate cancer quite recently, and I had to make a lot of decisions about how I was going to be treated and what I was going to be treated with. Just like, the journey I go with my breast cancer patients. And the bottom line is you're given a number, right? In my case, I was given a number that said I was 85% likely to be cured with the surgery, and therefore I didn't need further treatment. Which seemed a bit strange to me because if you've had hormone receptor positive breast cancer, which is the equivalent of prostate cancer in males, they're the sort of evil twins for males and females, 15% risk is enough for you to take anti-hormone therapy. But in males, it's not. So I'm sort of still trying to work my head around this. But the bottom line in both these illnesses, I'll get to the point in a second, in both these illnesses, late relapse is common. So in hormone receptor positive disease, it's actually hard to say that you're ever cured because there's always a lingering risk that a relapse can occur 20 years later, literally, both in prostate cancer and in hormone receptor positive breast cancer. Whereas on the other hand, if you have HER2 positive breast cancer and you have successful therapy and you go to surgery and all the cancer's been eradicated, you have a 90 to 95% chance of being cured at that point. And if you get to 5 years without a relapse, you are cured. And the same thing for triple negative breast cancer. So the answer to your question is always depends. It depends on who you are and what you have and what you were diagnosed and was the treatment successful. And then from there, you're given a number, how likely you are to be cured. But I always think these numbers are a bit difficult, aren't they? They're like the sword of Damocles. One person would say, like me, 15% risk of recurrence. I can live with that because living without androgen as a male is very difficult. Men get completely miserable because men don't go through menopause quite the same way that women do. So when they have a crash andropause, it's devastating to them. And so that's why they're not so keen to do hormone prevention in males because it's extremely poorly tolerated. Whereas in females, you may choose to do it. So that's kind of how I see it, if that makes any sense to you.
Well, also, you're around a lot of doctors, the best in the field, and of course, it's for those not knowing, listening from outside of Houston and don't know this, but most people do. Houston is a place that people come to from all over the world for medical treatment of all kinds. So we have the best of the best here in Houston, it's been said, and it's proven by the people traveling here for whatever their problem is. So I suppose those listening right here in Houston or those that want to come to Houston, if they have a medical condition, breast cancer or anything else. This is a good place to be. You know that because you're here.
Well, that's right. I mean, in actual fact, the state of Texas did a very special thing. So all us taxpayers have contributed to this. Is something called CPRIT. So CPRIT is the Cancer Prevention Institute of Texas, Research Institute of Texas, and they put in literally billions of dollars into cancer research. And so, for example, the gift I got to come to Baylor from Washington University, or the research grant, I would say, I got from CPRIT to bring me here was $6 million. But in fact, since I've been here, I've raised probably north of $20 million in research funds. Which brings me to the Nancy Owens activity as well, is that it's critical to have these seed funds to get projects going. Because in all these profiling studies we do, we find new biological hypotheses, new potential targets. So where do you get money to study that? Because you haven't written the grant yet. You don't have the money. Nancy Owens provides that impetus, that catalyst to get something going so you can get that grant.
And we'll remind people, nancyowens.org. You can go there, whether you're listening right here in Houston or anywhere in the world. You can go there if you would like to help, nancyowens.org. Doc, with the next couple minutes left or so, what else do you think is important for people to know about this subject?
Well, I think that in a way, breast cancer is just such a common problem. It really affects everybody. There's a few things I would say as take-home messages. One, you just had Dr. Petrosian on. So I'm a big believer in knowing your risk of breast cancer. And for my case in prostate cancer, it's because my uncle died of prostate cancer. So I was like hyper aware and following very carefully what was going on with me. And that probably saved my life. So knowing your risk, getting regular screening mammography, and then she talked about some lifestyle issues that, of course, I can support. But then if you get diagnosed with breast cancer, then you need a really good opinion. You need to be to sort of, work out where you are in that spectrum of illness I was talking about. And then finally, a lot of women are offered clinical trials, right? This is where we're investigating the cutting edge. New drugs are being tested or new devices are being tested. And if you have the opportunity, if it makes sense to you, participate in a clinical trial, be part of the answer. And that's particularly the case, for example, if you've experienced a relapse or disease resistance, or they tell you, it's gone to your liver or something. And access to clinical trials is a big thing, both at Baylor and MD Anderson Cancer Center. And we often work together, actually, to get the right answer for the patient.
Before we close out the segment, are there any websites other than nancyowens.org where you can help make a donation, get more information? Doctor, what other websites would you
can go to the
Lester and
Yes, you can go to the Lester and Sue Smith website, and there's a donation link there, which is prominently displayed. So Lester and Sue Smith Breast Center, Baylor College of Medicine, or Baylor College of Medicine Breast Cancer, and you can find the link to make a donation.
We're talking with Dr. Matthew Ellis. He is the director of the Lester and Sue Smith Center. Doctor, it's been fascinating. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Very happy to participate. Thank you.
In today's litigious society, it is imperative to have the proper insurance to offset the many risks facing your business, especially if you're a real estate broker. Your errors and omissions and cyber liability insurance can help limit the threat of these risks if you know what to look for. Not sure if your insurance addresses the risks facing your business? Contact Stewart Insurance to be confident your brokerage can withstand these risks. Stewart Insurance, 866-798-2827. StewartInsurance.com. That's StewartInsurance.com, or call 866-798-2827.
Real Estate Matters would not be possible without our partner, Stewart Insurance. With a focus in real estate and special focus on real estate brokers, Stewart Insurance creates insurance plans to address the risk facing our industry today. They invest a significant amount of time helping real estate broker owners manage and offset their risk. And here we are once again on location with John Bramlett with Stewart Insurance. Here we are, John. Welcome.
Thank you, Bill. Always a pleasure to be with you.
Well, we started the show off, and here we are bringing some insurance insights from you and any other insights you have, as we've had a tremendous show today.
It really has been a fantastic show between the folks supporting the Nancy Owens Breast Cancer Foundation, the doctors that are doing all the research. It's just been a marvelous day, and I'm so glad that Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title, Stewart Insurance has the opportunity to play a small part in defeating this horrible disease.
I want to tell you who played a major part in putting this show together, and she's right over here to our right. That's Christina Sacco, to assemble 3 top doctors in the Houston area at various medical institutions to be able to coordinate them, to be able to coordinate Amy Bernstein and Terry Guerra. That's Christina Sacco at Stewart Title, helping people at Stewart find properties, close real estate transactions. But Bush, she could sure put a cast a show in a tremendous way.
She can. Is that the Christina Sacco that's over
The
at
one that we're waving at right now?
Stewart Title Find Properties at Kirby Grove?
That's right. That's her.
Well, if you're closing, you need to call Christina Sacco at Stewart Title in Kirby Grove.
That's right. She's going to give us the phone number here in just a minute. But, John, from an insurance standpoint.
Well, it's a good time to go back and take a look at the types of insurance that we need to consider as a real estate professional. Whether you're a broker, property manager, homeowners association, management firm, there are several, business insurance opportunities that you ought to take a look at. So the first being errors and omissions or professional liability. And that really is the risk you encounter from a services you provide as a real estate professional. So you may get a claim that you weren't professional. You get a claim that you were not diligent in your duties, that you did inadequate work. So what that does is assists with the court and settlement costs up to the liability limits that you would have in your policy. So if somebody says you weren't doing your job right, there's some protection.
That's a good point. I mean, people, that's in some ways, there are certain guidelines in every profession and in every endeavor, but sometimes it's a matter of opinion. I might think I'm doing my job right, which I often think. Sometimes I'm wrong, and someone may have a different perception, more importantly.
Absolutely, and even if the claim is frivolous, you still have defense costs.
That's
so
right.
That's why it's important to have the professional liability or the errors and omissions. There's general liability coverage that we want to take a look at. So that's coverage for your guests or your clients that may become injured on your premises. So if they're visiting your real estate office and somebody slips and falls, you've got that kind of coverage for your guests or your clients. It also protects customer property damage. So if you're rearranging a property for an open house and you break a vase, you've got coverage there. So that's important as well. And then I guess the third area that provides some coverage is what they call advertising injury. So that somebody feels like you've slandered them, or you've libeled them, or you're using a photograph that they've trademarked that you don't have, that you haven't paid for the right to use, or you haven't gained the permission to use. So that's where your general liability coverage comes into play. What I'd like people to know, if they'd like to continue the conversation about the different insurances they have and then they need, that we would be happy to do so with Stewart Insurance. Our number is 866-798-2827. That's 866-798-2827.
Anywhere in the United States, you're covering people, home, cyber liability policies, broker, all those things that we need, everyday insurance items. You're doing it. You and the team are doing incredible work.
Well, thank you, Bill. It's a passion that we have to properly insure folks. So whether you're here in Houston, Texas, or in Wyoming, or Kerrville, Texas, or Hot Springs, Arkansas, we can help you.
Doesn't even matter. We're covering it everywhere.
Absolutely.
And Christina Sacco, great job on the show. Let's tell people if they want to close their real estate transaction with you, let's give them a quick word and how they can reach you at Stewart Title Find Properties.
Bill, thank you so much. It's so important for everyone to hear this show today because of the Nancy Owens Breast Cancer Foundation, and we're very happy to have those 3 very talented doctors to be featured. But to close that Find Properties, please reach out to me at 713-325-1748. 713-325-1748.
And once again, you could if you're outside of the Find Properties area, you're in the Woodlands or somewhere else, Stewart Title, Stewart.com. You can hear past shows at Stewart.com/Houston, and of course, NancyOwens.org to find out more. Maybe make a donation. That's up to you wherever you're hearing the show. Thank you for listening to Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title. I'm your host, Bill Nampick, together with Christina Sacco, John Bramlett. Thank you so much for listening. Again, go to Stewart.com/Houston. And thank you, Amy Bernstein, for letting us enjoy the outside of your home and do this show right here on location at Amy Bernstein's house. Thank you all.
Contact Stewart Insurance to determine if your business is properly insured. Visit StewartInsurance.com or call 866-798-2827. Visit StewartInsurance.com or call 866-798-2827.